Okay, so you want to know what's happening in AI right now? Today, we're diving into a live discussion recorded October 3rd, 2024. It's like we're dropping in on artists and developers getting hyped on the latest trends and tools.
And it's raw,
Mhm.
no scripts or anything, just pure creative energy. Listeners can get a real feel for the pulse of this world.
Exactly. Our mission is to pull out those aha moments, the kind of stuff that'll change how you think about where AI art can go.
One of the first things that hit me was this shift from all the early hype to like a real focus on craft. Remember when AI art was all about just wild experimentation for the sake of it?
Yeah, totally. It felt like a gold rush to make the newest, weirdest thing. But now,
Now it's about refinement, It's like
yeah.
the Wild West is settling down.
Yeah.
Artists are actually honing their skills and blending AI with traditional art in some really fascinating ways.
So cool. Do you have any examples?
Yeah, take Dr. Lemony, for example. She went from experimenting in her digital studio to having her AI-influenced work showcased in a physical gallery. And get this, in Newark, New Jersey, of all places.
Wow, a physical gallery. That's huge. Seems like AI art is really entering the mainstream art world. What kind of art does she do?
And what's even cooler is how she blends traditional mediums like oil pastels with AI. This isn't about replacing old methods. It's about creating entirely new art forms.
That is so cool. It makes you think what other unexpected combinations are out there waiting to be discovered. Okay, so the scene is evolving, but what about the artists themselves? What's the overall vibe like?
It's incredibly collaborative. You know how some tech scenes can get kind of competitive? This is the opposite. Sharing is king. Over and over, they emphasize that more than any hyped-up tool, it's the community that matters most.
I love that. The human connection still reigns supreme, no matter how techy things get. It reminds me of those online art communities, artists sharing tips, doing pomp challenges together. Speaking of which, were there any moments that really showed that community spirit?
Oh, absolutely. There's this one moment where someone named Nancy asked for help digitizing her dad singing from an old DVD. Imagine wanting to preserve that kind of family treasure.
No, absolutely. It's so precious. Did anyone have advice?
The response was incredible. People were throwing out software recommendations, even offering to help her directly. It's a community that genuinely wants to support each other.
Proof that tech is just a tool, right? It's the people using it, their willingness to connect, that'll shape AI art's future.
Right on. And speaking of tools, another takeaway was the excitement around accessible options beyond just the big companies.
Yes, democratization of creativity. I love it. It's not just for the tech giants anymore. What were they most excited about?
They were buzzing about freeware, things like comfy UI and open source models. That means anyone with a computer can explore their artistic
But
potential.
this is giving me major desktop publishing vibes. Remember when suddenly anyone could design and print their own magazines and newsletters? It totally revolutionized the creative landscape.
And these AI art tools could do the same thing. One artist who specializes in dark, almost fantastical art mentioned using freeware specifically to explore those themes without any limitations. Accessibility allows for such diverse voices and visions, don't you think?
Totally. And that makes me think, as AI art becomes more accessible, how do we balance that with responsible use, especially when it comes to some of these more challenging themes?
That is the big question, isn't it? Now get this. The conversation then took a fascinating turn into AI music.
Oh, here's where it gets really interesting. AI composing music always blows my mind a little bit. What were they saying about it?
So they were talking about tools like SoundDraw and Jukebox. SoundDraw, for example, lets you choose a genre and a mood, even the instruments, and the AI will generate a unique track based on your preferences.
That's incredible. Imagine the possibility.
And it gets even wilder. They talked about how AI can analyze your digital art and then suggest actual paint colors based on the mood of the piece. Imagine putting your artwork through something like that. What unexpected result and inspiration could come out of that?
Mind-blowing. It really highlights how interconnected all these different creative disciplines actually are.
It's like AI is revealing hidden bridges between art forms we used to think of as totally separate. And speaking of connections, the conversation then shifted to a topic that always seems to spark debate: censorship in AI art.
Censorship. Now, there's a word that can make any artist nervous, especially with the technology as powerful as AI. What were the different viewpoints they were discussing?
It was a lively debate for sure. Some artists felt really strongly about having some kind of guardrails, ways to prevent AI from creating harmful or exploitative content.
Yeah, understandable considering the potential for misuse with something this powerful.
Exactly. But then there's the other side. artists who argue that true creative freedom means having access to all themes, even the darkest, most challenging ones, without limitations.
So it becomes a bit of a tightrope walk, right? Balancing freedom of expression with the responsibility that comes with wielding such a powerful tool.
Exactly. And this isn't just a new issue with AI, is it? Art has always pushed buttons, sparked controversy. Think about how many groundbreaking work throughout history actually faced censorship or backlash back in the day.
That's so true. It makes you wonder, what will be those defining moments for AI art in this debate? What's going to force us to confront these big questions head on?
Only time will tell. But it's encouraging that artists are already having these discussions, grappling with these ethical complexities. And speaking of grappling with complexities, let's talk about how these artists are tackling the challenge of creating longer pieces of music with AI.
Right, because AI music generation is still finding its feet, right? Like, I imagine there are still limitations on the length or complexity of what it can actually produce.
Absolutely. They talked about running into time limits all the time. Imagine wanting to create a whole symphony, but your AI tool only lets you generate 30-second snippets. Frustrating.
Talk about a creative wall. So how are they getting around that?
They've come up with some clever workarounds, extending tracks, using a technique called in-painting to replace sections seamlessly, even paying for more credits on some of these platforms to get those longer initial generations.
So a mix of creative problem solving and, well, strategic use of resources, I guess. I like it.
Exactly. They even talked about alternative platforms, one specifically called LoudMe.ai, that are designed for those longer-form AI music projects.
So more specialized tools for those who are serious about taking those AI compositions to the next level. Kind of like the difference between, say, a basic home studio setup and a professional recording booth.
Exactly. And speaking of studios and solutions, remember Nancy? The one who wanted to digitize her dad's singing.
Oh, right, with the old DVD. Did those tech-savvy artists pull through for her?
They sure did. They walked her through everything, finding the right software, reassuring her that her old Mac could probably handle it.
That's so cool. It really speaks volumes about how supportive this community is. They're not just interested in the tech itself. They genuinely want to help each other achieve their own personal creative goals.
It's really heartwarming to see. And their collaborative spirit goes beyond just technical advice. There's this photographer, David Leonard, who put out a call for artists to collaborate on a project exploring the 7 virtues and sins.
Whoa, that's ambitious. And kind of perfect for AI art, don't you think? It makes you question the very nature of creativity, morality, the whole human experience.
Exactly. This isn't just about creating pretty pictures. It's about making people think, engaging with big philosophical themes.
It's like they're holding a mirror up to humanity using algorithms, asking those really tough questions.
Precisely. And speaking of showcasing art, because that's a challenge in itself, right? They also talked about how to actually showcase this amazing art that's being created.
Right. It's not like traditional art forms where you can just hang a painting on a wall or perform a song live. AI art requires a different approach.
Exactly. They were discussing the challenges of traditional gallery settings for digital work, especially when you're talking about something like Neil's longer form AI videos.
Right, because AI art can be so dynamic, interactive. It really pushes those boundaries of what we traditionally even think of as art.
Exactly. Take Neil's work, for example. He's creating these AI-generated videos that have this really cinematic feel, and he talked about the importance of things like smooth transitions, seamless camera movements, all that stuff that really sucks you into a film.
So it's not just the visuals, it's about the whole experience, the storytelling.
Exactly. He's using tools like Runway, Luma, even traditional video editing software to get that really polished cinematic effect. It's about combining the best of both worlds, human creativity and that raw AI power.
That is so cool. It's like being a conductor,
Yeah.
orchestrating all these different tools to create this harmonious final product. Speaking of tools, were there any other platforms that caught their attention for exhibiting this kind of groundbreaking work?
They talked about some really interesting possibilities. One that stood out was actually Google Notebook, the note-taking app.
Yeah, I use it all the time. Wait, for exhibiting art? What do you mean?
So they've recently added this podcasting feature, and it's actually pretty slick. You can use AI voices to narrate your notes and everything.
No way. That's incredible. I mostly just use it to jot down grocery lists.
And that's what's so great about it. These artists were excited about the idea of turning their AI art and text into these whole audio experiences, making it accessible in a whole new way. Imagine, listening to an AI-narrated exhibition of someone's artwork while you're going for a walk or something.
That is mind-blowing. Talk about meeting your audience where they are. It's like the audio equivalent of those really immersive digital art installations that are popping up everywhere.
Exactly. And not just for exhibitions. They were talking about using it for audio dramas, guided meditations, all kinds of really creative storytelling possibilities, all driven by AI.
Yeah.
It's totally breaking down those barriers between what we think of as traditional art forms.
I love it. It's like AI is giving artists this whole new palette of tools and mediums to play with. Now, we can't talk about new platforms without mentioning the M word monetization. Did they discuss any ways for artists to actually make a living from their AI art?
Absolutely. Some mentioned selling prints and merchandise on platforms like Etsy and Society6, so turning their digital creations into physical products.
That's a smart move. It makes it accessible to people who might not even consider themselves art collectors, but they see a cool design and want to rep it.
Exactly. And then on the music side, one artist talked about licensing their AI-generated music for things like video games and commercials.
Oh, wow. So, like, creating the soundtrack for those epic boss battles or those heart-wrenching ads we all love to hate watch.
Exactly. What's great is that they were very open about sharing tips and resources for actually navigating that business side of things. This community is so supportive, not just creatively, but professionally, too.
It's like they're building a whole new kind of art world from the ground up with its own rules, its own opportunities, and this really refreshing spirit of collaboration and mutual support. Now, for a question that's been on my mind this whole time, can AI actually be considered creative, or is it just a really, really sophisticated tool?
Ah, the million-dollar question. Right, and honestly, there was no easy answer. Some artists felt very strongly that AI is just a tool, no matter how impressive the output is.
Because true creativity has to come from within, right? Those sparks of inspiration, the ability to tap into emotions, life experiences, things that AI just doesn't have.
That was the core of their argument. That AI is ultimately limited by the data it's trained on, those parameters that we set as humans.
It's like the difference between, say, a master painter and their brush. The brush can create art, sure, but only in the hands of someone who understands things like color, composition, emotion.
Exactly. But then there's the other side of the coin.
The artists who see AI as more of a partner in crime, like a muse that can help them push their own creative boundaries.
Exactly. They talk about how AI can help us break out of our creative ruts, expose us to new ideas and styles that we might never have considered otherwise.
It's like AI is expanding our artistic vocabulary, giving us these new ways to express ourselves.
Exactly. Like having a brainstorming partner who can generate endless possibilities, helping you to see your own work in a whole new light.
I love that analogy. So it's not about replacing human creativity, but augmenting it, taking it to these new unexpected places. But even with all this potential, there are still those valid concerns about the ethics of it all, right? Like with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. And that was a big part of their discussion. The risk of AI being used to create harmful or misleading content, like we've seen with deepfakes, for example.
Right, because technology in itself is neutral, but ultimately it's in the hands of humans. And we all know humans can be complicated.
Exactly. And that's why they really emphasize the importance of those ethical guidelines and responsible use. They talked about being mindful of the potential impact of their creations, especially when dealing with sensitive topics.
Like that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. And it sounds like these artists are taking that responsibility very seriously.
Very much so. They were talking about everything from having open and honest conversations about these issues within the community to seeking feedback from trusted sources and being extra cautious when venturing into uncharted territory.
So it's about proceeding with caution, being aware of those potential consequences, and just always asking those tough questions. Because ultimately, the future of AI art depends on us making responsible choices today.
Exactly. And speaking of the future, they talked a lot about the importance of education. And not just teaching people how to use these AI tools, but helping them understand the broader implications of this technology.
Right, because the more people understand about AI, the better equipped they'll be to use it responsibly, both as creators and consumers.
Exactly. They talk about the need to demystify AI a little, to make it less intimidating and more accessible for everyone.
It's about breaking down those barriers, showing people that AI isn't this big, scary, mysterious thing. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
And that's where education comes in. They talked about the need for resources that explain AI in clear, simple terms, resources that can dispel all those myths and misconceptions that are floating around.
And not just theoretical knowledge either, right? It's about giving people those hands-on opportunities to actually experiment with AI, to see what it can do, and to discover their own creative potential.
Absolutely. It's about empowering people to become creators, not just consumers of AI art.
I love that because when people feel empowered, when they feel like they have a voice, they're that much more likely to use it for good.
Exactly. Now, we've talked a lot about the potential benefits of AI, but let's not shy away from the challenges either. One of the big ones that came up was the impact of AI on the future of work, especially in those creative fields.
Right, because if AI can create art, write music, even tell stories, then what does that mean for artists, musicians, writers? Are they going to be out of a job?
It's a question that weighs heavily on a lot of people's minds, for sure. And there were definitely some concerns expressed, especially about the potential for AI to automate certain tasks,
Yes.
potentially leading to job displacement in certain sectors.
Which makes sense. I mean, we've seen it happen in other industries, so it's only natural to wonder if the same thing will happen in creative fields.
Absolutely. But what was really interesting was how many of these artists saw AI more as a tool for augmenting human creativity rather than replacing it.
So more of a collaboration than a competition.
Exactly. They envision this future where AI could handle a lot of those more repetitive, time-consuming tasks, freeing up artists to focus on the things that AI can't do, you know, coming up with those original concepts, infusing their work with real emotion, real meaning, and connecting with audiences on a deeper level.
So AI takes over those more mechanical aspects of creativity, allowing human artists to really focus on the things that make art special. The heart, the soul, the human connection.
Precisely. And they saw this shift as an opportunity for artists to develop new skills, to adapt to this changing landscape, and thrive in this new era of creativity.
It's about embracing the possibilities of AI while also recognizing that irreplaceable value of human ingenuity, intuition, empathy. Now, as much as I love geeking out about the philosophy and ethics of AI art, there's a part of me that just wants to know the practical stuff too. Like, how can I, as an AI artist, actually make money from this? Because let's face it, art is great and all, but it's got to pay the bills too.
Right, we can't survive on inspiration alone. And thankfully, that's something that these artists were very open about discussing. They shared some really practical tips and strategies for actually monetizing their work.
Like what? Give me the inside scoop.
Well, for starters, they emphasize how important it is to build a strong online presence. Platforms like Behance, ArtStation, even Instagram were all mentioned as great ways to showcase your work and connect with potential clients.
Makes sense. It's like having a virtual gallery that's open 24/7, accessible to anyone in the world.
Exactly. And they also stress the importance of treating your art like a business, which means doing things like setting realistic prices for your work, managing your finances, and promoting yourself effectively.
It's about thinking like an entrepreneur, not just an artist, right? Because even the most passionate artist has to eat.
Absolutely. And they were really generous with sharing resources and advice on everything from marketing strategies to even legal considerations.
It's like they're building this whole supportive ecosystem for AI artists to thrive, not just creatively, but financially as well. And when artists are able to support themselves, they're free to create even more amazing art, which benefits everyone.
Exactly. And that entrepreneurial spirit was really inspiring to see. It
Yeah.
just goes to show that the AI art world is about so much more than just the technology itself. It's about people, passion, and the power of creativity to not only inspire, but to create real-world opportunities.
It's like they're rewriting the rules of the art world, democratizing access and creating new pathways for artists to share their vision with the world.
Exactly. Now, before we move on, let's take a moment to appreciate the incredible talent and dedication of these artists who are out there pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI.
Absolutely. They're the pioneers, the trailblazers, the ones who are shaping the future of art as we know it.
Absolutely. And their work really serves as a powerful reminder that the future of AI is not predetermined, It's being shaped right now by the choices we make, the stories we tell, the art we create.
It's a future that is brimming with possibilities, and I, for one, am very excited to see what these artists come up with next. It's inspiring to see how this technology is not just evolving creatively, but it's also shaping careers and pushing the art world in totally new directions.
It really is. Speaking of new directions, the conversation took this interesting turn towards something very practical: portfolios. Because even in the digital age, artists still need a way to showcase their work, right?
Totally. But AI art has to come with its own unique challenges when it comes to portfolios. Like, what do you even include when the possibilities are basically endless?
That's exactly what they were grappling with. And the artists really stressed the importance of showing a diverse range of work. You don't want to just be the psychedelic landscapes person or the AI portrait specialist.
Makes sense. You've got to show you're not a one-trick pony, even if those tricks are pretty mind-blowing.
Right. Show some range. They talked about including different styles, different subjects, even some of the more experimental stuff that really highlights how willing you are to push those creative boundaries.
It's about proving you can not only handle the technical side of AI art, but that you're bringing your own unique artistic vision to the table as well. Did they give any specific tips for actually making those online portfolios stand out?
Oh, absolutely. High quality images are key, obviously. But also clear descriptions of your process, like what tools did you use, what was your creative approach, things like that. And don't underestimate the power of a really good presentation. A well-organized layout that's easy to navigate can make all the difference.
It's like curating your own little digital exhibition, right? First impressions matter, even in the virtual world. I'm sure they mention online platforms too, right? Like, where should people be putting these amazing
Of
portfolios?
course, Behance, ArtStation, Instagram, those were all highlighted as essential tools for building your online presence as an AI artist.
It's like having your own personal art gallery that's open 24/7 to anyone in the world. Talk about democratizing art. Did they talk about the business side at all? Because creating a portfolio is one thing, but actually getting noticed is a whole other challenge.
They did. And here's where that amazing collaborative spirit really shines again. They were sharing tips on everything, from the best ways to market themselves to even setting up online shops to sell prints and merchandise.
It's like they're building a roadmap for success in this whole new frontier, helping each other navigate the business side so they can focus on what they love most, which is creating.
Exactly. It's really inspiring to see that level of support.
Now, amidst all this talk about the practicalities, the conversation circled back to a pretty big question: the role of the art critic in the age of AI.
Ooh, interesting. Because AI art really throws a wrench into a lot of those traditional ideas of art criticism, doesn't it?
Exactly. Some artists felt like those traditional approaches to criticism might not even be relevant anymore when it comes to AI. We need new tools, new perspectives to really understand and evaluate this new art form.
Like AI art is forcing the art world to evolve, to rethink its own rules and standards of what art even is, for sure. They said that, for one thing, AI art critics need to be more tech savvy, understanding algorithms, data sets. It's almost like a whole new language to learn.
It's like you have to be fluent in the language of AI so that you can translate these creations for everyone else.
Yes. And they felt strongly that critics need to be thinking about the ethics of AI too, its societal impact. It's not just about aesthetics anymore. It's about the bigger questions, the bigger conversations that AI brings up.
AI art isn't just changing how art is made, it's changing how we think about art, how we talk about art, how we experience art on every level.
Exactly. It's a
Well,
lot to wrap your head around.
mm,
But it's that constant evolution and questioning that keeps things exciting, don't you think?
absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to touch on because it really resonated with me. It's this idea of AI art as a force for good in the world.
Yes. That was really inspiring to hear them talk about, like, how can we use AI art to actually raise awareness for important issues? Things like climate change, social justice, human rights.
It's like AI art can give a voice to the voiceless. It's a way to reach people's hearts and minds through these really stunning visuals and powerful stories.
Exactly. They talked about all these projects that used AI to do things like visualize the effects of deforestation or create these really powerful interactive installations about the refugee experience. Some even used it to generate music that expresses the pain and resilience of communities impacted by conflict. It was really incredible.
It's about harnessing the power of AI to not just create beauty, but to inspire empathy, to spark those important conversations, and maybe even drive real, meaningful change in the world.
Exactly. And for me, that's what made this whole conversation so powerful. Yes, we geeked out about all the technical stuff, the challenges, the business side, but at its core, there was this incredible sense of purpose, this belief that AI art has the potential to truly make a difference.
It's like these aren't just artists, they're visionaries, pioneers. They're using this technology to not only expand the boundaries of what we consider art, but to push humanity forward in a positive direction.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So to everyone listening, whether you're an AI art enthusiast, a skeptic, or even just curious about this brave new world of creativity, one thing is clear. AI art is here to stay. And as with any powerful tool, it has the potential to be both wondrous and challenging, transformative and disruptive.
It's up to all of us as a society to really guide its development, to explore its possibilities responsibly, and make sure it's being used to create a future where creativity flourishes, humanity thrives, and art continues to inspire us in ways we can't even imagine yet.
And that is a perfect note to end on. That's it for our deep dive into the world of AI art. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit mind-blowing. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep asking those big questions.